Hello again, YouTubers. Well, having bored you with a description of the terrain tiles which arrived a while back, I've now actually got to the stage where I've started to work on them. I should first of all say that the technique which I'm using is really an adaptation of the technique shown by Mel, the terrain tutor. If you've not seen Mel's channel, I strongly advise that you take a look at it. He's a really nice bloke. He's got some fantastic ideas, and he is a mine of information, and he's only too happy to answer any questions you may have. So this is primarily down to Mel. Anyway, what I've done is I've got here one of the 18" by 1 foot pieces of terrain, and I've gone over it with polyfiller. I've used standard polycell polyfiller. It's spackle, I think, for our American cousins, and effectively just added a drop of water to the mix in the pot, and then used a crabby old brush like this one, which has just been soaking, to use it. Used it to stipple the polyfiller onto the boards. This one here is one which I prepared the other day. It's quite rough, the texture. I don't know if you can see it too well there, but the texture is quite rough. You don't need to put loads on, but you just blob it on with a brush. Keep adding water to the pot as you're doing so, and you end up with that stippled effect. And then what I've done after that is I've taken some sandpaper, or in this case green oxide paper, and just give it a rub round all over to take off the most obvious points and pinnacles, and to reduce it to a relatively smooth surface, but nevertheless one which has got a texture in it. And as you can see from there, those boards have already been done. I finished these the other day, and I'm in fact this morning in the process of sanding them down prior to painting. I've just got a couple more to do over there. I've got some more hills and things downstairs, but I thought for the moment I'd just experiment with one hill. I've used an awful lot of polyfiller on this one to try and get the edge a more graduated feel. I think on reflection what I'd be inclined to do is fill that with papier-mâché or something like that in future, and then I'm going to do one with Mod Rock, you know, the plaster of Paris blanket, or bandage rather. I'm going to put that over another one and see how that looks. But I've decided to go for more of a caricatured hill with the flat top rather than a true mound, because I want to be able obviously to position troops on it. I have in fact got some figures here which just give you an idea of scale, I suppose. There you can see it's only a small area of raised ground really. It's not a hill in the true sense of it, but it would give a slight height advantage to any troops on it, ideal perhaps for an artillery battery or something like that. And overall I don't think it looks too bad. I think it might need another coating of polyfiller on this one before I paint it. What I intend to do is paint it a solid brown colour, and then work from there. So I know that someone very kindly asked if I'd do a tutorial on doing these boards. I'm not very good at doing tutorials, but I will try and keep you posted as to how it goes along, so that if anybody wants to give it a try, they can follow these techniques. As I said, I think in an earlier video, the foam comes from a guy who trades under the title of Blue Foam on eBay. He's great in terms of supplying stuff. I asked him to cut these pieces into 18 inches square, which he did do. He did the 1 foot by 18 inch pieces for me as well, although I gave him metric dimensions, but doesn't matter which. And then he very kindly sent me separately all the offcuts, which I've stored to one side now, which I will indeed use at some point. So this is effectively where we're up to on the terrain. I'm going to get these painted probably later on today. I don't think I'll be able to get all of them done because, quite frankly, I've not got the space to lay them all out to dry. But I will crack on with those, and I'll do another video update when they've been painted, and I can take you on to the next stage. I don't propose to do a video of me stippling polyfiller or spackle onto these boards, because that's just, well, first of all, it'd be incredibly boring, and secondly, I think you can work out for yourself how it's done. As I said, it's dead easy. Just dip the brush into the polyfiller, dip it onto the, or rather stipple it onto the boards, and it sticks quite well. Thing is, you can go over areas if you want to with an extra layer. I've done these on the basis that if I need to add some more to them, then I can do. I'll certainly, as I said, be doing something with the hill. I'll be adding a bit more to that, I think, to give it a less rough and ready approach. The actual hill itself is one of the, I think it's from Total System Scenic. I bought that ages ago, but they're quite readily available. Obviously, you can cut them to size. I just glued this to the board using, in this case, it was Woodland Scenic's foam tack glue, but you can use any kind of glue that's okay for use with polystyrene foam, as long as obviously it's not solvent based, because that will just simply dissolve the foam. But PVA will probably do it, neat PVA I would think. I know Mel the terrain tutor advises that you spot the PVA underneath it rather than spread it like butter, because it won't set properly otherwise, so you're better using spots. All I did was put a few spots of foam tack glue, which I think is PVA, on the bottom of it, put one of these tiles on top to protect it, and then put a weight on top of that, and within 24 hours it was fairly solid. So that's all on the terrain for the moment. I'll now move on to Operation Cupboard Clearout, which is rather pathetic compared to the efforts of Fraser von Kettering, but anyway, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, back with the results of Operation Cupboard Clearout. I said they were pathetic. It's got a very pastoral theme to it. I had some sheep which I bought ages ago, God knows why, but anyway. So I decided that eventually I'd get round to, oh come on, get them into focus. There we go. I decided eventually I'd get round to sorting these out, and Operation Cupboard Clearout seemed as good a time as any. So we've got 2 sheep there grazing or resting. These sheep are grazing. I think they're 28mm scale. Let's just see when these French soldiers come alongside them. Hang on a minute. Sorry about this, I'm making you dizzy, but I've not got a tripod, I'm doing it freehand. Right, there we go. Actually, they look like very small sheep. I think they're probably midget sheep. I'm not so sure about that. And on the other hand, continuing the pastoral theme, I decided to do these corn stooks that I've had, I think that's what they're called. I've had from, these were from Hovels, I think. God knows how old they are. But I've done those 3. Compared to the sheep, they're absolutely gigantic. Again, I don't know what scale they are. I thought they were 28mm scale, and I think looking at the French soldiers with them, they probably are. As for the sheep, perhaps it's one of these unique midget breeds that existed many, many years ago. I'm just making that up, by the way. Anyway, that's basically Operation Clearout, because it's been overtaken by the terrain, so that's my excuse for not doing much of a clear out. It's the terrain building. I have got one other item which I will show you in just a sec. So finally, the item I want to show you are these this unit of Prussian dragoons. These are front rank miniatures. They're the first figures in my new Prussian army. The painting technique is not my oil wipe-off technique for the horses, which I would normally use. I followed the technique which Loki of Loki's Great Hall recommended in his series of videos on painting horses. and I have to say I am delighted with the results. I think they've turned out very well indeed. First experience of painting Prussians. I'm a bit dubious about the colours for their uniforms. I thought at first they might be a little bit too pale, but well, they're okay, and on the basis that it's reasonably historically accurate, it suits me, it's my army, that sort of thing. Figures themselves were very, very nice to paint. Front rank are very, very high quality. The riders, I don't know whether you'll know or not, but the riders on these horses are actually they're a bit of a departure from front rank's system, in that the riders don't have their saddles moulded to the rider. The saddle is actually on the horse under the saddle blanket, so the rider has just got a pair of legs basically. I made the mistake of painting. Well, I think it was a mistake. I made crikey. I adopted the method of painting the soldiers by pinning the riders to a peg, then painting the riders, painting the horses separately, and gluing the riders to the horses. The problem with that is, of course, I was gluing paint against paint rather than metal against metal. And I think every one of these damn riders fell off while I was rebasing them. So I've used Gorilla super glue to stick them on, and they seem to have adhered. I think in future I might operate a slightly different technique for painting them. I know that Loki recommends that you drill a pin in the rider and then subsequently pin the rider onto the horse, which is a good system, I've no doubt, but I bent a lot of the pins, and to be honest with you, I couldn't be bothered faffing around drilling holes in the horses, because knowing my luck, I thought none of the riders are going to sit properly anyway. So I might try a different technique. In fact, I probably will try a different technique next time I do some Prussian cavalry, which won't be too long. But this is the first unit of the Prussians that I've done, and I'm pleased with them. They've all got separate sword arms, which I know von Ketteringen mentioned in one of his videos, that he'd pinned the arms because they could be likely to fall off. Me being lazy, I didn't bother pinning them, I just super glued them, and a few of the arms did indeed fall off. There was lots of bad language while I was painting these, but hopefully I will learn from my mistakes and do better next time. But I'm pleased with them, and I think that they're a good start to the Prussian army. And then last but not least, I did mention in a previous video that I wanted some of the flexible roads. Well, I've got these from a guy who trades on eBay as Fat Frank, and these are his flexible roads. They're all made of rubber, and they are indeed flexible. They come with a nice finish and a coating of flock in along the edges. You can have various configurations. I've bought several of the straights, because what I intend to do is cut some of these straights in half so that they'll fit on my board, because they don't do that at the moment because of the shape and because of the dimensions of the board. But you can buy curves, you can buy proper bends, wiggly bits, junctions, and I've asked the lad who prepares these things, who makes these things, and he said they don't need any particular storage. I've noticed that some of these are curling a little at the edges. I think that may well be due to the fact that I've left them out here for several days on the board and haven't laid them flat, and I think it's possible that they're drying out a bit. But anyway, that's it really. Nothing more to tell you for the moment. You can see there I've still got some more grey boards that I need to texture, some more hills. These hills are fairly big, as you can see, quite tall really, so I do really need to work out technique for putting those on the board, as I showed you upstairs. I don't think I'll go any bigger than this. I'm thinking that the one with the cavalry on it, I might actually run that across 2 boards and cut it in half. And the one beyond it is also relatively shallow as well, so that's possibly one that's going to fit on a board. I don't want huge mountainous hills, and as I said earlier on, because I want to sort of do caricatures of hills with flat tops, I want to keep them fairly discreet. Anyway, I've been yammering on long enough. I hope your projects are all going well, and that this has been of some interest to you, and I shall keep you posted. Cheers and thanks for watching. Bye now.